Two little girls cracked the bones in their toes. Within a few years, 1,000,000 grown adults were sitting in darkened rooms, holding hands, waiting for the dead to knock back. The girls were 11 and 14. The trick took them an afternoon to learn. And the religion it accidentally founded would outlive all three of the sisters who built it, survive their public confession that the whole thing was fake, and still be going strong today. So how does a children's prank, played on a superstitious mother in a drafty farmhouse, turn into a worldwide faith with millions of believers? To understand that, you have to go back to a cold night in upstate New York and a sound coming through the wall. It's the winter of 1847, in a tiny hamlet called Hydesville, New York. A farming family named Fox has just moved into a small wooden cottage. There's the father, John, the mother, Margaret, and their two youngest daughters still at home, Maggie and Kate. Almost at once, the family complained that the house was noisy at night. Knocks, taps, strange rapping sounds with no clear source. The mother, a deeply religious and superstitious woman, grew convinced something was wrong with the place, and her two young daughters watched her grow frightened. Now picture being 11 and 14, bored in a cold little house in the middle of nowhere, with a mother who jumps at every creak. That fear was an opportunity, and the Fox girls were about to seize it. On the night of March 31st, 1848, the rapping started again. But this time, young Kate did something new. She spoke to it. She snapped her fingers and called out a challenge to the unseen thing in the walls. "Do as I do," and she clapped out a rhythm. A heartbeat later, the same number of raps answered her back from the wood. Maggie joined in. She clapped, and the raps echoed her count exactly. Their mother, watching this happen, felt the blood drain from her face. Whatever was in the house wasn't just making noise. It was listening. It was answering. The girls had a name for it. They called it Mr. Splitfoot, an old country nickname for the devil. The mother ran for the neighbors, and that is the moment the secret slipped out of the family's hands. Because the neighbors came. And then the neighbors brought more neighbors. By candlelight, a crowd packed into that little cottage to question the spirit. Someone worked out a system. 1 rap for no, 2 for yes. Then a slower code, rapping through the alphabet to spell out words, letter by letter. And the spirit told them a story. It rapped out that it had once been a man, a traveling peddler named Charles Rosna, murdered right there in the house years before and buried down in the cellar. The crowd was electrified. They actually went down and dug in the dirt floor, searching for a body. They didn't find one. Not then. But it didn't matter. The legend was already loose, and it was spreading from house to house faster than anyone could dig. Here's the thing you need to understand. 2 scared, bored girls had started this to frighten their mother. They never planned for a mob in the parlor. The prank had outgrown them in a matter of days, and now they couldn't take it back without admitting they'd fooled everyone, including their own terrified mother. So they did the only thing they could. They kept going. Enter the third sister, Leah. Leah Fox was much older than Maggie and Kate, a grown woman living in the nearby city of Rochester, scraping by as a music teacher. When word reached her of the spirits in Hydesville, Leah did not see a haunting. She saw a business. Leah took control of her little sisters. She brought them to Rochester, away from the small town that knew them, and she began to organize. The casual knockings in a farmhouse became something rehearsed, presented, and above all, ticketed. On the 14th of November, 1849, Leah put the girls on a real stage at Corinthian Hall, the grandest hall in Rochester, in front of a paying public audience. The Fox sisters had gone professional. The spirits now performed by appointment, and the public went wild for it. Not everyone, though. That very week, the skeptics of Rochester demanded a test. They formed a committee of respectable citizens and set out to catch the girls in the act. The committee examined them and found nothing. So a second committee tried. Nothing. Furious, the doubters formed a third committee, and this time they got serious. They stood the sisters on glass plates to block any hidden electrical trick. They tied the girls' skirts tight around their ankles. They even had a panel of women strip search them. And still, the raps came. Test after test, the investigators sent to expose the Fox sisters were forced to admit, in public, that they could not explain the sounds. The crowd nearly rioted, and the girls had to be escorted out under police protection. Think about what that did. The men sent to destroy them had instead officially failed to prove fraud. To a believing public, that wasn't a non-answer. It was proof. The harder skeptics swung and missed, the more real the spirits seemed. Remember the world these girls were living in. Death was everywhere. Disease took children by the thousands. Mothers buried babies, and there was no comfort to be had but the hope of heaven. And here were two sweet young girls promising something almost unbearable in its kindness. Your dead are not gone. They are right here, and they want to talk to you. That promise was a wildfire. People didn't just want to believe, they needed to. And so a movement was born, with a name: spiritualism, the belief that the living could speak with the dead through gifted people called mediums in gatherings called seances. To feel the pull of it, you have to sit in one of those rooms. The lamps are turned low. A dozen people join hands around a table, the air thick and still. Among them is a mother who buried her little boy last winter, sitting rigid, barely breathing. The medium asks the question every person there is aching to ask. Is there a spirit with us tonight? And out of the dark wood of the table, sharp and clear, comes a single rap. Yes. Around that table, grown men begin to weep. How do you argue with a grieving mother who has just heard her dead child answer? There was another reason it caught fire, and it had nothing to do with ghosts. Almost all the famous mediums were women. In an age when women were expected to stay silent in church and out of public life entirely, the seance handed them a stage. A female medium could hold a room full of powerful men spellbound. Many of them carried that new authority straight into the fights for abolition and women's suffrage. Within a few short years, spiritualism wasn't a curiosity. It was a phenomenon sweeping America and crossing the ocean to Europe. Mediums sprang up in cities everywhere, all claiming the same power the Fox sisters had shown. By some estimates, the movement would soon count followers in the millions. And the believers were not just the gullible or the grieving poor. They were some of the most powerful and educated people in the country. The famous newspaper editor, Horace Greeley, one of the most influential men in America, embraced the sisters and welcomed them into his own mansion. Celebrated writers and public figures attended their seances and came away convinced. The Fox girls, once unknown farm children, were now moving through the highest circles in the land. It reached all the way to the White House. After the Lincolns lost their young son Willie to fever during the Civil War, a grief-stricken Mary Todd Lincoln hosted seances in the executive mansion itself, trying to reach her dead boy. The president is said to have sat in on a few of them. The little prank from the farmhouse in Hydesville had climbed to the most powerful address in the country. But not everyone in the room was praying. Some were watching their feet. From the very beginning, skeptics smelled a fraud, and they kept getting close to the truth. As early as 1851, a group of doctors in Buffalo examined the sisters and announced that the raps weren't spirits at all. They were the sound of joints, knee joints, cracking and snapping. The doctors had it nearly right. A relative even came forward and claimed Maggie had confessed to her how the trick was done, with the toes. The accusation was out there, in print, decades before the final confession, and yet, somehow, none of it stuck. The believers simply did not want to hear it, and so they didn't. Because here's the uncomfortable truth about a comforting lie. When people need something to be real badly enough, evidence stops mattering. Every exposure just bounced off. The seances rolled on, and the money kept coming in. But while the movement thrived, the women at the heart of it were quietly falling apart. The cracks showed first in Maggie. In 1852, she met a man named Elisha Kent Kane, a famous dashing Arctic explorer. They fell in love. But Kane was from a wealthy, respectable family, and he was ashamed of what Maggie did for a living. He begged her to give up the spirits and the seances. For him, she tried. Kane paid to send Maggie away to school, determined to turn the spirit rapper into a respectable lady. She even converted to Catholicism, she said, because it was his wish. And in a quiet ceremony, the two were secretly married. But Kane's wealthy, well-connected family was appalled by the match, and they refused to recognize it at all. And then, in 1857, Elisha Kane died. Maggie was shattered. The one person who had pulled her toward an honest life was gone, and his relatives now denied she had ever been his wife, refusing to honor the money he had meant to leave her. Years later, broken bitter, Maggie struck back. She published Kane's private love letters in a book, selling their secret romance to the public. It was the first time she would cash in a piece of her own life. It would not be the last. She drifted back toward the only trade she had ever known, and she began to drink, both she and Kate. The younger sister, who had started it all with a snap of her fingers, sank slowly into alcoholism. Kate, though, had one last act of triumph first. A wealthy admirer paid her way to England, where she married a London barrister and was received as a celebrity. And there, the movement won its most respectable prize yet. A leading British scientist named William Crookes, one of the most distinguished physicists of the age, tested Kate's powers under his own controlled conditions. His verdict stunned everyone. Crookes declared the raps real, writing that for sheer power and certainty, he had never encountered any medium who came close to Kate Fox. Sit with that. Two girls who had started by fooling their superstitious mother had now, supposedly, fooled one of the finest scientific minds in the world. The little toe trick had climbed all the way to the laboratory of a future president of the Royal Society, and looming over both of them was Leah. Leah had done very well out of the spirits. She had married a wealthy man, secured a comfortable, respectable life, and risen in society. But Maggie and Kate had become an embarrassment to her. Two drunk, struggling women who knew her deepest secret. The bond between the sisters rotted into resentment, and finally into something close to hatred. The breaking point came in 1888. By then, Kate was drinking heavily and raising two young sons alone, and authorities, urged on by figures within the spiritualist community, moved to take her children away on grounds of her drinking. To Maggie, this was the final betrayal. Their own movement and the sister who ran it were now turning on Kate and her babies. Maggie decided she was going to burn the whole thing down. The secret she had kept for 40 years. She would finally tell the world. On the 21st of October, 1888, Margaret Fox walked onto the stage of the New York Academy of Music. The hall was packed with more than 2,000 people. Some were curious. Many were devout spiritualists who had come, perhaps, to see her vindicate the faith. Instead, she destroyed it. Standing before that enormous crowd, Maggie gave a signed confession to the press, and then she proved it with her own body. She removed her shoe. She placed her stockinged foot on a small wooden stool, and in the dead silence of the theater, she cracked the joint of her big toe. The raps echoed through the hall. The same sound that had launched a religion, the voice of 1,000 departed spirits, was a woman snapping a bone in her foot. Doctors came up from the audience and confirmed it, holding her foot as the sound rang out. "Spiritualism is a fraud," she told the newspapers. She said that when it all began, she had been too young to know right from wrong. She described how it really started. Two little girls, bouncing an apple on a string to scare their mother, then discovering they could make a far better, sharper sound with the joints of their toes. It should have been the end. The founder of the movement, on the world stage, confessing it was all a childhood trick and demonstrating exactly how. Spiritualism, you would think, was finished. It barely flinched. The believers had an answer ready. Maggie was a poor, broken, alcoholic woman who had been paid $1,500 by a newspaper for her confession. She was lying now, they said, not before. Her testimony, the testimony of the very founder, was waved away by the faithful as easily as every exposure before it. And then came the final dizzying twist. Just over a year later, Maggie took it all back. In 1891, she recanted her confession, and once again claimed the spirits had been real all along. So which was it? Were the raps a fraud, as she swore in that packed theater? Or was the confession itself the lie, a bitter act of revenge against Leah, dragged out of a desperate drinking woman who needed the money? The honest answer is that we will never fully know what was in Maggie Fox's heart at the end. The toe-cracking demonstration is real, witnessed, and physical, but a tormented woman who said one thing under the lights and the opposite a year later took the whole truth with her to the grave. And the grave was not far off for any of them. The sisters who had spoken for the dead now died in quick succession and in poverty. Leah went first. Then Kate, worn out by drink, died in 1892. And Maggie, the girl who had clapped back at the spirit in the wall, followed her baby sister in 1893, penniless and largely forgotten. There's a strange footnote, years later. In 1904, the story goes, a wall in that old Hydesville cottage collapsed, and human bones were found hidden behind it, seeming to prove the murdered peddler had been real all along. But when the remains were examined, they turned out to be a jumble, mixed in with the bones of chickens, almost certainly planted. Even the final proof was just one more trick. But the movement the sisters started would not die with them. A generation later, It found its fiercest enemy in the most famous magician who ever lived. In the 1920s, Harry Houdini toured the country waging open war on fraudulent mediums, the spiritual descendants of the Fox sisters, exposing their tricks one by one before packed houses. Houdini could replicate every effect they produced because he was a master of deception himself. He called the mediums who preyed on grieving families human leeches, and he pushed all the way to the United States Congress to crack down on seance fraud. And still, for every fake he unmasked, the faithful simply decided that Houdini was the liar. So, what do we make of the Fox sisters? Two children invented a ghost to frighten their mother and could not find the off switch. A grieving nation, surrounded by death, took that ghost and built a cathedral out of it. And when one of the children grew old and stood up to say it was never real, the cathedral simply decided she was the liar. That's the part that should stay with you. The hoax is almost simple. A snap of a joint, a frightened mother, a clever girl. The mystery isn't how two sisters fooled the world. It's that even after they confessed, demonstrated the trick, and showed everyone the strings, the world looked at the proof in its hands and chose to keep believing. Thanks for watching Fabrication Files. Like and subscribe for more.